The story begins with the words of the Roman poet Virgil, who wrote that fate supports the brave. Then we are shown Babylon, Paris 323 BC. Great Alexander is taking his last breath. He has no heir to the throne, and everyone wants to be king of the 18 great kingdoms. The story then jumps to 40 years later. In Alexandria, Egypt, the elderly Ptolemy will tell us the story of Alexander, how he died and who became the heir to the throne after his death, and why the world still remembers the great Alexander. Ptolemy says years have passed. I still remember all that. In the field of the Persians, at the Goga fair, in numerous wars and regions, how we crossed the mountains of the Hindu race and went to India. Alexander was like a god. I have not met such a person until now. What he did for the world, no dictator has done so far. Only brave people rule this world. Before Alexander, people lived in tribes, but everything changed after his arrival. He united everyone, and it felt like a king could rule the whole world. He established 18 great kingdoms whose doors were open to everyone. In the presence of Alexander and the worship of Apollo, we made the impossible possible. He was the only man of his time who had conquered the world. Ptolemy goes on to say, before Alexander, Persia ruled almost the entire world in the east, while Athens, Sparta, and Thebes ruled in the west. But his pride killed him. For 100 years, the Persian king was bribed by the Greeks to do his bidding. Then the king of Macedonia, Philip, gathered all the people of Greece, including the illiterate, and freed them from the slavery of the Persians. The Persian king, who was powerful, sat in Babylon, but still feared Philip. Alexander was born in Philip's house. People believe that Alexander's mother, Queen Olympias, was a magician. She worshipped the dynasty, and Alexander was said to be the actual son of Zeus. Queen Olympias and King Philip were not compatible because they each had to sacrifice to become king. The queen wanted Alexander to follow her footsteps and do as she said. Alexander was the sole heir to Philip, so he was to be the next king. Alexander was given an excellent education in childhood because he was advanced in Greek philosophy, so his knowledge surpassed that of others around the world. Philip called for Aristotle to teach Alexander and the other royal children. That's how Alexander found out that there was a vast world outside Macedonia that hadn't been properly conquered yet. They had only heard stories, but no one had gone to Asia so far. In Alexander's mind, if he could cross the mountains of the Hindu Kush while in Paris, go to India, and then travel back to Egypt along the Nile River, he would reach his home in Greece. But it was just a dream. No one else dared to dream of going so far except Alexander. One day in Macedonia, when everyone was gathered in a field, a wild horse couldn't be controlled. No soldier of Philip's could control him, not even King Philip himself. In the meantime, Alexander comes forward. But that time, Alexander was a child, but he had the courage to tell his father, "Buy this horse for me, Baba." The king says it's useless, that the horse is wild and can't be controlled. But Alexander says, "I will ride it. If I can't, I will pay for it." The king mocks him, saying that he'll break his hands and feet. But Alexander is stubborn. Anyway, everyone watches this spectacle. Alexander goes near the horse, understands that it's actually afraid of its shadow, calms it down, and rides it. Everyone was astonished to see that Alexander controlled that wild, stubborn horse, which even the grown men couldn't do, and he rode it in front of everyone. Everyone was delighted to see Alexander's wisdom and bravery. Now, Alexander was the king of Greece as well as Asia, but he had no heir. Alexander decided in a tribe of Sogdia that he would marry an ordinary girl. The name of the girl was Roxana. His people were enraged by this decision. They said that, "Alexander, you will have to marry a Macedonian." Alexander said that, "I will do that too." But he also said that it is an insult to our country that you make an ordinary girl your queen. He did not want Alexander to marry Roxana, but Alexander had given him a lot, which no Greek emperor could give until today. That's why Alexander went against his will and married Roxana, and a relationship was formed between these tribes. Alexander kept receiving messages from his mother, Olympias, in which she said that they are from the family of Achilles. "You should not have married an ordinary girl. It's been 7 years since you left. Either come back to Macedonia and take care of your throne or stay in Babylon, but don't go any further. Here in Macedonia, people have forgotten who Alexander is, and some people are also rebelling against you." Now, Alexander's dream was to go beyond Asia. That's why he didn't stop. Alexander's decisions did not seem good to his companions. That's why some of them rebelled and tried to poison Alexander. But Alexander survived, and all the people he suspected were killed. He even killed a childhood friend. Alexander and his army had not gone to their homeland for the past 7 years. It is shown that when Alexander and his army were passing through the jungles of India, they saw monkeys for the first time. They thought they were small humans who live in trees. But later it was found that they were actually animals and they imitate humans. The weather in India was different from Greece and India. It rained here for many days. This was breaking the morale of Alexander's army. A soldier named Cletus, who was also loyal to Philip, was also with Alexander. He was tired of this never-ending war. He got land, so he was far from his country. He got angry about it. Alexander was also drunk, so they had a fight. And when Cletus insulted Alexander, Alexander got angry and killed him, which was a big mistake. This made Alexander's people hate him. Maybe one day Alexander would kill them too. It's been 8 years. No one saw their family. They fought in more than 50 battles, and they won them all. But now they were tired, but Alexander was not. He gathered his army. He wanted to conquer India. He said to his people, "I know you are all scared, and it's fair because we never came so far. We will make a sea ship and travel to Egypt by the Blue Way. In a few weeks, we will reach Alexandria and then our country, where our own and the wealth that we have won from Asia is waiting for us." People were ready to hear these stories. But this time, most people did not support Alexander. Alexander's commander, Cletus, came forward. He said to Alexander, "King, I do not like my army's excuses, but many of my people were martyred, some at a young age. 8 years ago, I brought a force of 40,000, but now when I look back, I see very few faces. Rain or sun, we fought for you. We fought in more than 50 battles for you and killed many people. Now you want us to go further and fight the people here." Hundreds of elephants forming a massive army. Alexander addresses his comrade, revealing that the commander is none other than Cletus, who could understand the intricacies of war better than you. However, scars cover my body, a testament to the countless battles I've faced. Through every hardship, I stood by your side. Cletus acknowledges Alexander's contributions, emphasizing the love they all share for him. It's a poignant moment, especially considering the many lives lost in the conflict. But now a collective desire emerges among the soldiers to return home one last time, to reunite with families and embrace a semblance of peace. Only then will they willingly rejoin the fight, prepared to face whatever challenges lie ahead, even if it means descending into the depths of hell. Alexander agrees, understanding the soldiers' yearning for a return to normalcy. The prospect of basking in their hard-earned riches, reuniting with loved ones, and passing away in tranquility is enticing. Yet Alexander recognizes the ephemeral nature of fame. People swiftly forget. The trajectory of their destiny was forever altered when they married Persian women, fathered children, and amassed wealth, pursuits that, while enticing, ultimately consumed them. The annals of bravery that they've authored will inevitably fade. But one legacy will persist: the memory of leaving their king alone in Asia. This fateful choice led to insurrection among Alexander's troops, an uprising driven by those who deemed retreat unacceptable, even if it cost lives, including the lives of Alexander's closest confidants. Soon after, defeat loomed in India, forcing Alexander's forces into retreat. After recovering, the decision to return home was unanimous, leading the army back to Babylon. But here's the twist: Alexander had no heir. Despite being half ruler of the world, his choices didn't resonate with everyone. The absence of an heir, combined with unimaginable wealth, created a power vacuum. Tragedy struck as Hephaestion was poisoned in Babylon, followed by Alexander's own demise. Now, it's important to remember that this is a movie interpretation, so historical accuracy isn't absolute. Alexander's death led to the division of his empire into 4 parts. Ptolemy assumed control over one segment, reigning over Egypt for an impressive 4 decades. Meanwhile, the rest of Alexander's family met a grim fate. Even Roxana, who could have been the mother of Alexander's child, met a tragic end. In the end, it was the elder Ptolemy who mused that Alexander's equal had yet to grace the world. Imagine if he'd chosen a different path, one of domesticity and opulence in Macedonia. But that would not have been Alexander, a man who dedicated his life to conquering fear, ultimately achieving freedom. And there you have it, the captivating saga of Alexander the Great. If you enjoyed our analysis, please give us a thumbs up and consider subscribing if you're new to the channel. Thanks for joining us.